Hello, welcome to 1874. It's time for another episode of Conor Hourihane in Conversation. Villa hero from the playoff years, the Premier League years, joins us again to talk over what was a quite funny time to be a Villa fan. I think we can look back at it now and laugh. When Dr. Tony came in and owned the club, Conor, of course, signed under that regime. So we're going to talk about what Villa was like during that time. But before we do, we'll exchange some pleasantries and talk about a big game that happened last week. Because Conor, I know you were at Villa Park for the big game against Bayern Munich. What was it like from your perspective, being back and taking in that atmosphere?
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, it was a brilliant night. One that I was really, really keen to get to. Fortunately enough, managed to go. Yeah, what a night, what an occasion, and one that will live with me for a long time. There was kind of goosebump moments at the end, wasn't there? It was amazing. The atmosphere, and a historic one that will live long in the memory. I thought it was really top night.
Yeah, you're right to bring up the end, actually, because I didn't get as emotional as I thought I would when the Champions League music was playing. I don't know why. I mean, I was obviously focused, like I was playing. I think the way I was thinking about the game was really looking forward to it. But you're right to say that at the end, that was when I did feel emotional, seeing like the defense and Emi Martinez hugging and celebrating that win and celebrating that clean sheet. Like,
Yeah,
that was when the outpouring of emotion happened, really there.
yeah, I was really keen to obviously. To see what I was like for the Champions League music myself, because I actually went with my wife, and I was like, you have to get in for the Champions League music and listen.
Oh yeah, you got to be there for that.
Oh, it was amazing, and I got goosebumps. I did love that moment, but I definitely got more probably of a buzz at the end when it just kind of erupted. But the Champions League music at Villa Park was pretty special.
Yeah, I said to you before we came on that, like, for some reason, sometimes you get a feeling of whether your team's going to win or not. I just had a huge feeling that Villa were going to beat Bayern Munich for whatever reason. How confident were you going into that game that they'd get the job done?
I always thought there was a big result in the team and in the atmosphere and in the occasion, definitely. You know what I mean? It was kind of written, obviously, with Bayern Munich and the previous history there and all the rest of it, but it was always going to be a big ask. I think we spoke off air. After about 20 minutes of that kind of barrage from Munich, I felt like Villa were pretty comfortable, to be honest. I think it took about 20 minutes for Villa to get to grips of the game plan and Bayern Munich and nullifying them. And after that, really, I didn't really feel like there was much threat. It was key to get through that 20 minutes without conceding.
Yeah, of course.
Completely different game then, if that happens. But after 20 minutes, I felt that the game plan was pretty comfortable. And then as the night went on, Villa just got stronger, really.
Yeah, I thought Bayern zipped the ball around would be the word I'd use to describe it. Like, I was watching their passing and thinking, and I can't remember thinking at the time, like, I've seen good teams at Villa Park, obviously, but I didn't remember a team zipping the ball around the way that they did. Like, I was watching Kimmich because he's a player I've always liked, so I was paying a close eye to him, and like every pass was like bang on. And you're right, though, after that, Villa settled, and we were talking before we came on, you were a very good left-footed player for Villa, but Villa having Pau Torres at left centre back, that left foot, like his passing and the way he steps up against really big opposition. I don't know how many times you've seen Pau Torres play live, but seeing him play against elite opposition, he was just so good, wasn't he?
Yeah, I've seen him live now 6 or 7 times, and I think his distribution and his control on the ball and his calmness is top level. I think, we were talking about his ball for Duran for the goal. That's not even splitting a line. That's splitting 2 or 3 lines. He's gone from splitting the midfield to splitting the defense. The weight of the pass, and he does that a lot in Premier League games as well. And I think he's a top player.
Yeah, and obviously,
I was just going to say, like, that pass. Not many centre halves see that.
No, I don't think many midfield players see.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
In fairness, either. Yeah, having him back there, he's a complete game changer. And when Villa play against the top boys, he just seems to always raise his game, and it just shows what a first class operator he is. And I've got to ask you about John Duran as well, and that goal again. You scored some really good goals at Villa Park with your left foot.
He's doing me.
That was
amazing. Yeah.
That was one of the best. To say he didn't even look up and know where the goalkeeper was as well. You're just operating on pure instinct there, aren't you?
Yeah, instinct. Obviously, noticing potentially, where Neuer is, arriving.
He said he didn't know.
Right. Okay.
He said after. He said he didn't know.
Maybe it's just the way Neuer plays, and he knows that he's going to be high, because obviously any through ball, Neuer's there, isn't it? Any ball over the top, he plays so high. So for him to be able to see that and then go over the top with it, and the pressure and the pace that he's running at and the composure, it was first class. It was first class.
Yeah,
You
his
know?
start to the season has just been an absolute joke. I was ready for him to go in the summer, to be honest, because of things
Yeah,
around his attitude, and
mm,
I didn't feel like he appreciated where he was. The striker
and
he was
so
behind and the manager he was playing under, but he's knuckled down and
yeah,
come back this season. And he hasn't only just been like one of the stories of Villa's season. He probably has been the standout story of Villa's season so far as well, but probably across the whole Premier League. Like his
yeah,
story this season is incredible, isn't it?
yeah. It's amazing, and he's getting to that stage now where even against United the other day on Sky, he's like about to come on, and the crowd are like,
Oh,
"Hey," do you know
buzzing.
what I mean? He's getting the crowd are even getting a buzz off him, which is obviously a great place to be in. And I couldn't believe, obviously, he signed his contract the other day. I knew he was young. I didn't realize he's 20.
No, he's
I
very,
thought he was
very
like
young.
maybe 22 or 3. I know it sounds like there's only 2 or 3 years
No,
difference,
he's
but
young though.
20, I was like, "Oh, bloody hell, I didn't realize he was that young." Um, yeah, because he plays like a 27, 28-year-old, big, powerful, physical, and he's got an absolute bullet of a left peg, doesn't he? The power he gets on some of his
Yeah.
shots.
He's shooting. He reminds me of Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
shooting it. I don't think Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank was particularly tall, but just a lot of his game does remind me a little bit of him. He's the only person I can think of that he
yeah. He left like
comes
the
close
goal that
to.
he scored obviously a couple of weeks prior when he absolutely slapped it into the top corner.
Yeah.
It was like an absolute rocket, wasn't it? You know what I mean? The goal he scored at West Ham, cut back, great finish. I think he's an ideal type of, not second striker because that's unfair in him, but he's an ideal type of different player to have towards off Ollie. So sharing the load, or Ollie starts and he comes on, or whatever it might be. But I think he's an ideal one, and it was key to keep him and get him tied down.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing a pod the other day with Jacob Tanswell from The Athletic, and we were like talking tactics basically of how Mings and Kamara might fit back into the team. But this applies to John Duran as well, because we know that behind the scenes, Emery is kind of like working out a way that he can play them both.
Yeah,
But because of how sophisticated Emery's system is, like the knock-on effect of every area, you almost have to go through. If you're picking Duran and Watkins, you'd have to go to the midfield and change something from the way
yeah,
you've been
no, it's
doing it.
an
The
interesting.
same with the defense. How
Yeah,
hard is that when? Because I'm not being disrespectful here, but I remember at a time when Villa changed to 2 up front. Bruce just decided Codger and Abraham were going to play up front.
yeah,
I
yeah,
can't imagine there was much work went on
yeah.
in training. Whereas for Emery, he won't try that from the start until he's drilled it completely in
Yeah,
training.
he won't go with it until he sorted it. Yeah, I get that, and that's speaks highly of the level of coaching and a manager he is. But it's a great headache to have, though. I
Oh,
think like
lovely.
to be questioning Ollie's position or together or whatever. It just shows how high Ollie's been playing and how much Duran's having an impact. I think Morgan Rogers is giving him a headache because he has to play, in my opinion. I think he's that good as well.
Do you think he has to play as a 10, or do you think he could
Yeah,
go
so
out to the left?
does he go off the left? That's the thing, you know. Um, I know it's easy for me to say because I'm not involved in it. Because if I was a player, I'd be thinking I want to play all the time, want to play all the time. But there's Premier League games, there's Champions League, FA Cup. There's going to be so many games that they will all get their fair share. But of course, every game that Duran and Ollie are, you know, getting picked for, they're both going to want to start. That's just a self-pride thing. You know what I mean? So it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out, because I can guarantee you that when it's 60-65, the time that Ollie is coming off, he ain't going to be a happy bunny.
No, it's hard, isn't
Yeah,
it? Because
yeah.
Watkins is one of the best out there. You
That's what I
can't
mean.
really leave him out. That's why it worked so well against Bayern, because the Bayern defence had almost had enough by the time that John Duran came on.
Yeah.
Watkins had run them ragged.
No,
Like Cooper McCartney should have been sent off.
Ollie's done that well last year, an unbelievable year. To be getting taken off after 60 and a couple of times this season, he's well in his rights to be fuming, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
I like the way that now you're saying, like, it's good. Everyone's going to get their fair share, but everyone it is. I know exactly what you were like when you when you were
We
playing.
want in the Champions League, Carabao Cup, FA Cup,
No,
Premier. You
that's
know what I
fair.
mean?
Yeah,
But,
it is
you're right.
different.
I know. It's rich coming from me. I know.
Let's talk about then.
I know.
Let's talk about the time that you were at Villa. Then we're going to talk about the Dr. Tony era and probably focus quite heavily on him.
Yeah,
Just because it was, now we can laugh about it now because the club's in such a
of
good
course.
state, but the club
Yeah,
did very nearly go bankrupt, and also there was just a lot happened in that time. I was probably more privy to behind the scenes stuff in that time than I am now. Obviously, you were involved
yeah.
in, and you were playing. What was the Do you remember the first time you met Dr. Tony and what you thought?
I can't remember the first time I met him, but I remember meeting him obviously very early in my time. He used to hang around a little bit, obviously around the training ground, around the stadium. Um, and it was an interest. He used to, I think probably the first interaction was a regular Twitter message, like inbox.
Yeah.
He messaged me quite a lot, to be honest. I'm not sure if he did it to other players or not. But he used to text me a lot, or if I'd scored, or for a good performance, he used to like write a message to me. So yeah, it was an interesting time. I didn't realize the severity of his situation probably until we got to the playoff final or the run up to the game.
Yeah.
People were saying how key it was and all that kind of stuff. But obviously, look, he spent a lot of money, doesn't he? You go through the players that he signed. Kodja, Hogan, Ross McCormack. Them three alone, you're nearly talking 50 million. They were all around 15 to 16 million, weren't they? So he spent his fair share, that's for sure.
Because when you join Villa, obviously it's the January, and they're chucking money around like it's going out of fashion. Considering the Championship, and we weren't really pulling up any trees either.
Yeah.
At that point, and we had a lot of players who were already on high wages.
Mhm.
When you joined, were you surprised at the kind of volume of players that they were bringing in at that point? And because you came, and then it didn't even stop after that. I think Bjarnason possibly came after you, who was a midfield player.
Me, Henry, Neil Taylor, Sam Johnson, James Bree came at once. Then Bjarnason came late in the window, even though I was quite late, but he was later. And Scott Hogan was the final day.
Well, I know a story about Hogan.
Because we were Brentford away.
Yeah, and we lost.
And we lost. That was a terrible night and debut. But he was at Brentford, but not like his old club, but was coming to us the next day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he was there at Brentford, strange one. We're playing them, and he's actually coming pretty much back with us to train the next day. You know what I mean? It was like we were picking him up after the game.
He must have thought, "What have I done here?"
No, yeah, bloody hell.
What have I done?
I know. But yeah, it was a crazy January that time.
But how hard was that then? When because I always think if you buy too much, it's going to be a problem. It's hard to integrate people, and I'm guessing at that point when the team's not doing very well, it was also like it's a demanding fan base, so that we don't expect to be in the Championship to be mid-table. Unfortunately, that's where we were. But when everyone's trying to integrate during that time, it's tough, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the big thing for me was that they bought a lot of players and they were high quality players. I didn't like Kodja, Ross, Scotty Hogan was banging in goals. Henry Landry was the main player for Forest. I was doing well. I think there was Sam Johnson was obviously Neil Taylor, all these guys, but there was a lot of volume of players, but no plan how to fit everyone in. I think it was just like, who's on form? Just buy him. You know what I mean? And there was no plan. And I think that was an issue then to fit people in. How were we going to play? How were we going to get the best out of everyone? It was like chuck them all together, and they should just be okay because they're good players. And it doesn't work like that, clearly, as we saw. But I think back now, and like when I signed, we were 14th or 15th in the champ, and I obviously knew that the Villa was a big club and all the rest of it. But looking at where we got to before I left, and now where the club's at now, the fans must have been absolute uproar.
No, it wasn't great.
You know what I mean? Because obviously the previous season added to that, didn't it? The relegation season.
That was the worst year of my life, probably.
Yeah, that was
horrendous.
And I think potentially people ended up loving the Championship journey because we started winning games again and all, and getting to playoff finals and whatnot. But thinking about where the club is now and where it had been in its history to that time when I was signed, yeah, it must have been like I was kind of naive to it because I didn't see a lot of it because obviously I wasn't at a club clearly. But as I was gradually, moving to the next level with the club, I was thinking they must have been fuming before I arrived at how the club was being ran and being relegated 14th in the champ. Yeah, it must have been chaos.
I mean, that relegation season, I think we got 17 points. I don't think I missed a home game that season. And I remember I lived in London at the time. Just every weekend I'd be driving there and I'd just be thinking, I know we're not going to win today.
What we're doing, yeah.
And it kind of, that carried on into the Championship a little bit because it wasn't as bad, but we didn't have a high finish. I can't remember where we finished, but it was the bottom half. I'm pretty sure it was bottom half of the Championship.
Yeah, we didn't get to the playoffs. So the plan was I signed like we were 15th, 14th or something like that. And can we win a lot of games basically between Jan and the summer and try and make a run for the playoffs? And I think we finished about 12th. We were miles away from the playoffs. But I remember because we played Villa here at Barnsley. I was still at Barnsley at the time, first half of the season. And didn't you draw like 9 games out of 10 or something?
It was stupid. It
Yeah,
was up there. Yeah.
because you were due to get one of your first wins against us. It was about 7 or 8 games in, and we scored in the last minute to make
Yeah, I
it 1-1.
remember.
And I remember speaking to the doc when I signed in Jan. He said like that night coming back from Barnsley was like, wow, like rock bottom. That was
Yeah.
like horrendous. That because we were so close to getting our first win, and it made it like 8 draws in a row or something silly, and they just couldn't see a way where we're going to win games.
Yeah, Di Matteo left pretty quickly
I think he
after
left
that.
with 10 games. I think, and he only had 1 win out of 9 or 10 or something.
Yeah, he got the sack, and obviously Brucey ended up coming in. But I've spoken to Tommy Elphick about this time, like loads of times. But he said that like he would get called. Dr. Tony would. I don't know how many people will have heard this story before. I think I've told it on the Athletic when I interviewed Tommy Elphick, and like he said that he'd be like go to get his breakfast in the morning. You said Dr. Tony used to be around quite a lot, and Ho, who I used to know quite well, he's right hand man, like a Ho, a Villa fan, and a really nice guy. I'm not sure what he's doing now. I think he's
Yeah,
working
I'm not sure.
in sports marketing. I think the last time I saw him pop up
Yeah, he was like his translator, wasn't
on social media. But yeah, so they'd say to Tommy Elphick, "Oh, can you come and?" Co would go up to him in the canteen and be like, "Can you come and see Dr. Tony, please? He's got a present for you." So then, like, Tommy would go for this weird thinking he's getting a present, and then they'd just say, I think we might need to sack Roberto Di Matteo here. What would Eddie Howe do in this
Right.
situation? And he'd be there
Bouncing
like,
into the room with like a bit of "I've got you a present."
yeah, I got you. And he'd be like, "Where's my present?" And he's being asked about whether they should basically sack the manager, and he's only just come into the club as himself. You know, he's coming, which must be hard being a captain, like coming in
Yeah, of
brand
course,
new
yeah.
to a mental
Yeah.
dressing room.
There was a couple of times when Dr. Tony we'd come in on like a certain morning, couldn't tell you what day of the week it was, and we'd all have a team meeting, and he'd be like talking at the front.
Yeah, like he'd do these weird presentations.
Random presentations or random theories, or you know what I mean?
Tommy
Strange.
said that he'd like to do these stories with like the big build up, and like all the way through he's talking about this guy, and you'd know that he was talking about himself. And then
Right.
at the end he'd reveal that the story was like
Right.
about him. But like players, like you can't, like when you're playing for Aston Villa, and admittedly like we're at a bit of a low point, as you say,
Yeah,
at this point,
yeah.
but you must be sitting there as a player thinking, "Oh, this isn't normal. Like this
Right,
hasn't happened anywhere else I've been.
yeah,
Like why is this happening?"
yeah, definitely, without a doubt. And then obviously there was a language barrier then, which made it tougher.
Yeah,
But so the previous season when you were in the Prem, how many points did you finish on? Because I know it was
17,
4. 17, was it?
3
Okay.
wins.
Is that what it was? 3 wins.
3 wins. One of them was on the day one as well of the
Who did
season.
you say against Bournemouth away?
Bournemouth away,
Yeah.
and then we won
That was
2 games in the space of a week at home to Palace and Norwich, and then that was like in February or something. Then we didn't win again, and we hadn't won from August through to February. It
so who was the
was
manager? I know Sherwood. Was it Remy Gard when he got them
Remy
to
Gard. Then Eric Black took over at the end of the season, and that was pretty grim as well.
Did Remy Gard not even see the season out?
No.
Alright.
He had to leave. It was untenable.
Or
And
was it?
then obviously the Di Matteo and then Bruce
Yeah.
came in, which is where of course you come into it. But it's just like you must be sat there thinking this like because I think you've said to me before that you're playing for Villa. That's a huge club, and you're maybe sat there thinking maybe this is how things are done. At
Yeah,
like
because like obviously I had been at, you know, big club. So I was at like Sunderland and Ipswich, but I was like a youth team and a reserve player. So I didn't get to see like first team meetings and all that kind of stuff. But then I was at Plymouth and Barnsley, whereas obviously, you know, nowhere near the level of Aston Villa. So like when I went to Villa, and that was my first taste of like top club, you know, really good training ground, you know, big owners type of thing. So I was just thinking, is crazy, but I'm just going to roll with it because must be a bit normal. But looking back at it now, and how obviously when the new owners came in and under Dean and how we progressed, it was chaotic, really.
Yeah, because we've spoke loads of times about this. Like he used to, when you've said on this show, he used to message you because like the next season again we threw quite a lot of money at it, but
Mm.
started the season not great. It felt like Bruce didn't know what his best team was. He was trying to like mix and match, and then Windows obviously at the end of August we're like struggling through games, but then we're still adding players
Yeah,
into the mix, players coming in late, and You were out the team. Were you out the team at the start of that season? I think first few games.
Um,
So I remember like Bakuna played central midfielder in the first game of the season, and I think you were
yeah,
on the bench.
yeah, we played the first game of the season after we lost the playoff final. So are you on about this first game of the
So I'm
season?
on after you. I'm on about after your first season where we've not had a good season in the
Yeah, yeah,
championship,
yeah. So
and then the second set.
the start of that season. Yeah, I think that was the summer that
Elmo joined Snoddy,
yeah,
John
Snoddy,
Terry.
Katie, yeah. Did I not start the start of that season? I
I
can't
don't
remember.
think you did. I think you might have been on the bench and you came on, and I remember you and Bakuna was trying to take a free kick and you wouldn't let him take it, and
Yeah,
then
yes, but I
he
can't
ended up
remember if I
going.
was in the team or not. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he ended up going after that, and the fans had just had enough of players like that
Yeah,
at
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
point, to be honest.
Of course. Yeah,
So,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
you kind of had been a little bit in and out of the team at the start of the
Right.
season, and you obviously played the game against Norwich and
Yeah,
scored a hat trick,
yeah.
and
Because
then, like
I scored away at Reading
yes,
the night before,
yeah,
like the Tuesday night or whatever it
yeah,
was.
yeah,
So I came on at Reading away. I remember it now, and scored to make it 2-1, and we had like a late rally. Um, and then I started off the back of that goal in Norwich, and I kicked on after that. Really.
yeah, because you, basically, and people will know watching this as well, that I used to speak to Dr. Tony quite a lot. Like, he used to message me every day, and again, I was a bit like you, like, I was kind of just finding my way into, like, football media, really, and I didn't think at the time that this is really weird that the owner of Villa keeps messaging me and asking me questions and almost asking my advice
Mm-hmm.
on things. But like, he used to message me a lot, and then you've obviously scored a hat trick, and he sent me a screenshot of a conversation he'd had with you the
Yeah,
night before, where he'd basically said to me that you were only starting because he told Steve Bruce that he had to start you, and then he showed me the messages that you'd had the night before, and basically was trying to take the credit for the fact
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
you'd scored the hat trick. And he was almost like he was saying,
Yeah,
"I should be manager here,"
yeah.
and that was just stuff like that. It's just mental,
But
isn't it?
like, yeah, if you think about like on the flip side now, where the club is, so
Yeah,
where the club is now to where Dr. Tony is. Imagine if you got a message off the now owners,
yeah,
you'd be like thinking, fucking
big.
like this is massive for Villa owners to be messaging me. But at the time, for a Villa owner to message you was the norm. Is strange, really, isn't it?
Oh, it's
You know
not.
what I mean?
It's not right.
Yeah, that's not right. Basically, yeah,
Yeah, it just I don't know why he just seemed to. I think he just used to watch the videos that when it was the old Villa View. I think he just took a quite a liking
like
to me, because I used to go and like see him at Villa Park and see him at the training ground. And I was like allowed to go to things that people shouldn't have been
yeah,
allowed
yeah,
to
yeah,
go
yeah,
to, really, like
yeah.
seeing the Luke Roper kit before it was like launched,
Right.
and knowing that they were going to be making the kit and things like that. Like, I remember driving around in the car with him and her, and like I could tell he didn't understand a word of what I was saying, and I didn't understand a word of what he was saying. But he used to message me like all the time. But it's funny that he just like used to message you as well, and like almost try and
Must
G
have messaged
you up.
others as well. I can't
Yeah,
remember
I think he
anyone.
messaged. I know he messaged Jack, but I don't think Jack was. You're quite polite, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah, I wouldn't air a text, but like I'll be one word answers. So we've mentioned this before.
Yeah,
So
we know. I
yeah,
know
yeah,
all
yeah.
about
So
this.
the
Yeah,
last couple of days, and you've been peppering me. I've been like one or two words thinking, Dan,
that's
I'm thinking,
harsh. So was peppering. That's harsh. It was question. I thought, do you want to do it? I obviously feel like you've got no choice now because you've done two, and you feel like you've got to carry on because I've said that you'll be doing it for the season. So you feel the pressure. I've put you under pressure. Basically, is what I've done, and you've crumbled. But just like I think about like some players just won't, like, as I say, you're polite, but like some players will just be like, no,
what's going on?
why are you messaging me? Imagine him messaging like John Terry's probably quite polite actually, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
he would have messaged him and got a.
yeah. Jednak, he's not getting a message back.
Yeah, Jedinak's a scary guy.
Glenn Whelan did not get. Was Glenn there with Dr. Tony?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, Glenn's not messaging him back.
Yeah, but he used to like tell me like what the team was going to be at the weekend and ask me what I thought about it and
Yeah, that's bizarre.
who they were thinking of signing. Like the best one was, I remember that they were thinking of hiring Steve McLaren, I think it was, basically as an
Oh yeah,
assistant in that season.
right.
Bruce was manager and Steve Brown was obviously director of football, and we were struggling a bit at the time. We got
Mhm.
ourselves going after this, in fairness.
Right,
And he said, "Are we looking at getting in Steve McLaren?" And all I said, I remember messaging him, and all I said was, "Oh, that kind of makes sense because Steve Round has worked with him before at
right.
Middlesbrough." And
Okay.
then Dr. Tony was like, "No, he hasn't. He's told me that he's never worked with him before." I was like, I'm pretty sure he has. And then I went on Google and had a look, and he had. And then I told Dr. Tony he definitely has worked with him before. I've just checked, and he was basically like, Steve Round's lied to me. And then I didn't, and then I didn't hear anything about that ever again.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
Steve McLaren didn't end up coming. But it
Right.
was just
Okay.
like weird
Yeah. Right.
things like that used to happen.
So, like I said to you off air, I'd love to know what he's doing now.
Oh, he's on the run. I think I genuinely think he's
Yeah,
on the run, isn't he?
it'd be somewhere strange.
The authorities were definitely after him at,
Yeah.
at
Yeah, there was
one
something
point.
dodgy going on. Yeah, yeah.
But like that season, like it was actually like we started to win football matches again. I think we might have won 20 odd games, 25 games that season. Ultimately, we didn't go up, but Villa got back to
Yeah, it got back to winning.
win
There was a bit of a
football matches, didn't
feel.
they?
Got to the playoff final. We had a couple of big wins that year. Sheffield United away springs to mind.
The snoddy goal.
Snoddy goal, that springs to mind massively. Sheffield Wednesday away.
Yeah.
4-2 at Hillsborough. Snoddy scored a late one. A late penalty. So yeah, it just got back to feeling. What was it? Middlesbrough playoff semi-final.
Yeah, and that scored header.
Yeah, Mile scored a header. That was a good like kind of building momentum. But yeah, it didn't. When I look back at that year compared to, even though the dressing room was amazing, it was an incredible set of lads with like great laugh and training was brilliant. It didn't quite have the same feel as the going up year.
Yeah.
Felt like the momentum built for longer the year we went up. Whereas I think going into the playoffs where we lost against Fulham, it was like we don't really feel like we're going to go up here.
No, because they beat us. They beat us in an away game, hadn't they? At
It
Craven
beat us at
Cottage.
Craven Cottage. Codge got sent off, if you remember.
Yeah.
And did it beat us at our place?
No, I think we beat them.
Did they? I can't remember that.
I think you might have got him. Oh no, I think John Terry scored that day because I remember him
Oh, he
celebrating
did,
in front of the Fulham fans.
Yeah, he
And
did.
Adoma scored a lot of goals that season, didn't he?
JT scored a header, didn't he? From
Yeah.
I crossed it in.
Can't remember who put the free kick in. It was,
Yeah.
I think
He beat him, yeah.
Adoma scored in that game as well, and then went on a run of like scoring loads of goals. Because I just think, like in a parallel universe, if that team had gone up, like it was a really good dressing room.
Yeah, it was.
But I think had we entered the Premier League with Bruce and that squad, I think he'd have added a certain type of player being promoted, and that we would have struggled, and it wouldn't have been sustainable. And we nearly went back down anyway, but I think we would have gone straight back down.
Yeah, but like, I know we stayed up, and got a little bit of luck in terms of the year that we did stay up after we beat Derby in the final. But Dean, to be fair, bought like Ezri Konsa and younger players, whereas Brucey would have gone for you like older, reliable. Like people know.
It's Hull boys.
Yeah, exactly that. So it would have been more short term, whereas Dean went for the long term, and that was the right way, even though it was tougher. But it was the right way, in my opinion.
Yeah, because we didn't go up, but it kind of felt, well, no, it didn't feel like, this is the exact truth, that we needed to go up because financially behind the scenes there was all sorts going on. Like you've kind of alluded to already, that like the players kind of knew that they had to win that game, otherwise the club was in big trouble. Did that kind of add to the pressure? Because playoffs is a pressure situation anyway. Yeah. Did that almost make it worse?
Yeah, a little bit going into that final. I think the pressure of going up didn't really mount until we got through the semis, thinking back to it. But then there was definitely in-house chat of, we need to go up here. We need to win this game or else the club's in trouble. And I remember there was a lot on it. And Dr. Tony, we obviously got beat, unfortunately. And Dr. Tony, we all went back to the hotel, and Dr. Tony, the rumor going around, Dr. Tony like locked himself in his room, didn't want to see anyone for the whole night, and no one saw him again. So after that night, pretty much no one saw him again.
Because he was still technically owned 50% of the club the next season, didn't he? Because the new boys came in, Wes and Nassef, but technically Dr. Tony still owned half the club for that season we went up.
Yeah, so he still owned a little bit of the club, doesn't he? But he was never to be seen.
He came to the playoff final when we went up. He suddenly magically reappeared, didn't he?
He did reappear, yeah, he did.
But I don't think the new ownership was talking to him very much in Bardell in that.
Yeah, he wasn't like down the dressing rooms or seen in the training ground or at games, or even that day he turned up for the playoff final. No one saw him, if you know what I mean. On telly, but not personally.
No DMs anymore.
No.
The DMs dry up.
Yeah, dried up. Yeah, unfortunately.
I'd love to go. I mean, I could go back through mine and have an absolute third. I'd love to go through yours as well.
I'll go through mine later on when I'm just relaxing in the house a little bit.
Just have a look. What was it?
Yeah.
All the assists he got you like
Yeah, no, yeah.
for that
Yeah,
hat trick.
yeah, yeah.
To be
Yeah.
fair, I like, look, it was a stupid time, but he was always very nice to me, so you should always treat
Oh,
people
yeah,
as
yeah, yeah.
they
No,
find you. I'm
but
sure
no,
he
yeah,
was
it
nice
was
to you, but
yeah,
it just
no, it was just a strange time, wasn't it, looking
it's not a
back?
serious time, is it,
No,
that?
no, no,
Not
not looking back. It definitely because we can compare it now to, the phase that we went into and how professional what that was and how, where the club was going and, the infrastructure and how that was getting built to the Dr. Tony time. It was just chaos and professionalism. It was chalk and cheese, really.
yeah, it's like, I look back, it's almost like it's not real what happened to
Mm.
the football club at that point, because it's just I look at where Villa have been generally in my life, like pretty much always been Premier League. They're just those 3 years in the Championship. But I think about just how everything operated during that time.
Yeah,
It's not serious. It's
yeah.
just not a serious time at all.
What did you have a worse time? The year we lost the playoff final with the hope of expectation of going back to the Prem, or when you got relegated?
Uh, and relegation was just nothing from pretty much the first weeks of the season. So
Yeah, you kinda knew
you
the whole
almost knew it was coming throughout. Like
yeah,
you just knew. For me personally, I think at that point I was quite in with the football club, and I felt that if we went up, because Dr. Tony liked me,
yeah,
conversations about maybe having a job
okay,
at the club or something. And so there was lots of conversations around that with him and her. And then obviously, as soon as we didn't go up, it
and he
was
just
almost like a double whammy for me, because
yeah, true.
we
Yeah,
didn't go up, which is
yeah,
ultimately, I'm glad, because it's the best thing for the
of
football club.
course. Yeah, 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 yeah,
On a
yeah.
personal level, we didn't go up, and then suddenly all that like relationship that I'd built up had just gone, and I
Mhm,
wasn't going to get a job, and
mhm.
that dream had kind of died
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
day.
yeah,
So it was
yeah.
so probably that was worse
Okay.
for me. But like I spoke to you loads when you were at Villa, but I was like, I actually really liked those players, like Sam Johnston, you,
Yeah, yeah, really good, like,
Snoddy.
great guys,
I
great
really
guys.
liked them all.
Dressing room. Yeah, yeah, honestly, it
Chester.
was. It
And
was really
then you're worried about people like Chester and Jack obviously going as
yeah,
well, and you're
yeah,
thinking, "What's this team gonna be next season?" So, I think all that combined just made it that was, like, a horrible time for me
yeah,
to be a Villa
yeah,
fan.
yeah, yeah. No, yeah, I get that, I get that. And Jack was obviously the obvious one, and Chesney had a good season. Even like Snoddy was on loan, so he was going back. JT was not carrying on. Sam was leaving. You know what I mean? So there was big question marks about what was going on. Even like someone like, in my opinion, Lewis Graben
Yeah, he
has
did
done
well.
really, really well. Really, really well. I really liked him, but there's no chance of him signing off the back of what happened. So yeah, it was an interesting time, an interesting summer for sure.
Because, like, you've obviously come back, and the new ownership hadn't come in at that point. You'd been injured. You got injured in the playoff
Yeah,
final,
yeah.
and then you got pulled to do, like, a club TV interview, didn't you? And it was probably like
I can't remember that interview. You
I'll
mentioned
go
it.
back. Maybe I'm remembering wrong. I don't think I am though. I'm sure like you were somewhere. We were away somewhere. The players were away somewhere. Bruce always used to take you to like
Yeah,
Portugal or
Portugal.
something,
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
he?
yeah, yeah.
So
Oh, so what it was it when we were
you
in
were
camp?
you were in camp, and I
Okay.
think you got pulled up in front of the Villa TV. Someone basically would have had to have done it. I think Bruce did an interview that was really negative, and he's like
Yeah.
basically saying, "We need to sell. We've got to sell Jack and Chester," basically. And then
Right.
you got pulled in, and were like, obviously you're asked different things, and
Yeah, yeah,
you're basically trying to say, upset not to go up, but we're gonna go again
yeah.
this season. This is what we're gonna do. But the
Right.
circumstances under it were that we still were in financial trouble. We hadn't really bought anyone. We
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
expected to lose our best players. But like, was there ever a worry that you wouldn't like get paid and things like that? Was
No,
that ever a concern?
no, there was no talks like we won't get paid or anything like that. That never came into the equation. It was just like, how are we going to raise money to be able to keep going, really? So, like, it just went, like I just said, Jack was the obvious one, Chesney. Um, and then all of a sudden it just changed, didn't it? With the
Yeah.
new owners, and that question was gone, and it was like, right, we're cracking on even better,
Did
bigger
you
and
ever
better.
think that like you might go at that point? Did you ever think like the
Nah,
club's in a bit of a mess? If someone comes
not
in for me,
no,
maybe I'll
not
go.
really. I was really happy there, to be fair. Like, regardless, I knew I was worried about. So my big thing was like, my story. I was desperate to get to the Premier League. Obviously, got lost the playoff final. That dream shattered a little bit, but I still knew the size of the club, and even though we were money troubles, it was always going to be okay. I just felt like my journey to the Premier League might take a little bit longer, but I
Yeah.
was always really happy to stay. Um, But luckily enough, obviously, 12 months later, like we go into, and we all know how that ended. But at the time, I was thinking, it's such a big club, even though we're in money troubles, we'll come through it. So, like,
Someone will take over.
someone will take over. It's Aston Villa, you know what I mean? So that was always my thought process towards it.
Yeah. Did you say like you'd carried on in the Championship with Villa? I know how much you love Villa and you loved being there, but you would have. We know you wanted to play in the Premier League, preferably with Villa. Do you think if it had gone on and Villa hadn't gone up and someone had come calling for a Prem move, do you think that would have tempted you in the end to go, or do you think you just loved it at Villa so much you'd have ended up playing?
Potentially, but I always thought I was one of them players that like I had to go up with a team and no one was going to buy me.
Okay.
I felt like I was, decent or whatever, but I always felt like no Premier League club would come and buy me. Similar to like, the Sheffield United players, the Sheffield United players who had 2-3 years in the Prem, all very good players, really good lads, but I don't think anyone would have bought them to get to the Prem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you have to have that. There's a certain caliber of player that's very good in the Champ, but you need to get promoted to get to the Prem.
Okay.
I think I was probably in that bracket. Yeah.
I see. You're always very honest. You're always very honest. Like some people would come on and be like, "I was a Premier League player, no doubt. Like I could have played at the top level, blah blah blah." But you were like, because you obviously tried to go up with Sheffield United and with Swansea, didn't you? Try and kind of get yourself back playing in the Premier League.
That was my big hope, really, to get back to the Premier League. So obviously, I got to a playoff final with Swansea, got well beaten off Brentford, got beat 2-0. And then obviously the hope was when I went to Sheffield United for a year, could I get back there one more time? And we actually lost in the playoff semi-final to Forest, who evidently ended up winning it in the end. And it wasn't to be. But that was always kind of the aim from the outset, really.
Yeah. Have you got any other Dr. Tony stories that you can think of?
I don't really, just like Twitter messages constantly, funny meetings, come down to the dressing room, try and like speak to the players, but obviously couldn't speak. So everyone was like, what's this guy up to around the place? Obviously the playoff final one, I didn't see him again after that.
Never again. Yeah. Never in the DMs again.
No, they vanished. Bar seeing him kind of in the stand at Wembley.
Yeah. I bet everyone was surprised when he rocked back up that day.
Yeah, it was actually. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, to see him again from being nowhere was quite surprising, really. But I think, look, the current owners obviously kind of whatever the deal was to take it over, probably had to keep him semi-happy, but they probably had no.
No, they knew he'd be gone.
Yeah, exactly. There was no like, let's speak to Dr. Tony, see if he'd be happy with that. I think it was just like, you just sit there and you're happy, and we'll just take over. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We'll finish with some questions that have come through. Someone's basically, I mean, I'm sure the meetings with Unai Emery are very different to the meetings with Dr. Tony, but someone's asked her what percentage of teammates would want to sit through. I mean, to call Emery's sessions tedious, because I'd absolutely love to sit through one of those sessions. I think he's basically asking, like, as players you played with, would there be anyone who would like struggle with an Unai Emery video session?
As in from Villa?
From when you played, would there be anyone that would struggle with those sessions? I imagine John Terry would have loved them.
Yeah, John Terry would have loved them.
He would have absolutely loved them, wouldn't he?
Bacuna
wouldn't have liked it.
Wouldn't have the concentration for it.
Codger, I've got in my head, wouldn't like a video session.
Yeah, without doubt, Codger wouldn't have. Yeah, wouldn't be able to take all that in. I would have loved them. I know I would have loved them.
When you were like milling around Villa, you weren't milling around. You were working there.
Yeah.
Like, did you ever get the chance to like be around one of those meetings?
Seen him a couple of times. So I'd probably say twice. When I was in and around doing the 16s. So one time they were training late, probably for certain reasons, because they were playing at night time the following day or something like that. And I got to see one. And then when I first originally went in to speak about the job with the 16s, it was a morning time of one morning. It might be a Wednesday when I was off or something.
Yeah. And
they were training. So after speaking about the job, I actually went around and watched the training session. So only a couple of times, to be fair. And they're fascinating. They are fascinating. Just like the work and the detail. A lot of it's like just info. So like just constant info. A lot of small groups. And, a lot of individual work to improve the individual. So it's fascinating how he goes about his business. Like, and then the meetings that I've never actually sat in, but like heard about, can be a long meeting, but they're obviously a key to what he does. It's obviously a huge part of how to get his info across, because obviously, like, with the amount of games, you can't train religiously every day. So then your classroom work comes into it, which is just as important, really.
Yeah, so but obviously because you get full buy-in because the players can see where the club's at now and how much
Exactly.
they've all improved
It
through
comes with
it.
it comes with the environment. So if you can see where the club is going and you want to stay on that train for as long as possible, your attitude and your mentality towards the training to try and stay with the group and stay with the club is to a maximum. And if you don't, you'll slip away, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is. And everyone knows at the club, Unai's got the place, in the palm of his hands, and he's got the key to the house, doesn't he? So
Yeah.
he knows that if anyone is out of line, or if anyone, doesn't train to the max that he wants, then he's going to be left behind, isn't he? So automatically the training standards just goes through the roof.
Yeah, I mean, this would have been right up your alley. I mean, I should say people will probably go in the next 10 minutes. So if you've got any questions you want to ask, kind of quickly stick them in the chat, and I'll try and ask some that come along. But you would have
Yeah, I would love
you'd
to.
have loved that kind of thing, wouldn't you?
Oh,
That is right up your street.
I would have been notepad, pen out, taking it all down. Yeah, I would have loved this. I would have loved the obsession from the head coach to be, that intense and that detailed and that much to improve a player. Yeah, I would love that. I would love this.
Was there anything like anyone come anywhere near close to anything like that when you were at Villa? Did there
Obviously,
many?
look, Dean was good. Dean was very good. He had his way. He had his coaching way. There was no doubt Dean was very, very good. So he would have been the closest one, without a doubt. I think, he obviously wanted the best for the club. His heart was in it. Did real hard work to try and make everything work and improve and get the club to where it wants to go. So Dean was obviously very good. Thinking then elsewhere, like Steve Cooper was very, very good and detailed, and his coaching sessions and how much he wanted to improve the individual. So Steve was very good as well. So yeah, look, I definitely had a couple of really good managers that were at a really good level, but I never obviously probably got the ilk of what we're talking.
Because I think so. I think it must have been Tommy Elphick again. Like Dean introduced like a big screen onto the
Yeah,
training pitch, so people could like watch things
instantly.
like instantly. Like that was quite a good initiative. I don't know how many teams were doing that at the time, but I got told Dean Smith did that. So that's video analysis, isn't it?
Yeah. There was a massive screen on the side of the pitch, literally huge. Like, and we watched. So if we were doing a shape work or something, we'd watch back clips instantly. So that was really interesting to see. And Dean was big on like unit meetings and individual meetings, and that's when I kind of first saw that coming into the game. Really, units, individuals, improving clips. And then kind of as that went on, Steve Cooper was massive on it. Being away with Ireland was massive on it with certain coaches. Anthony Barry was an amazing coach. He was at Chelsea with Lampard. Tuchel, Bayern Munich. He's now the assistant manager of Portugal with Roberto Martinez, top coach. So he would have been massive on it as well. So yeah, been fortunate enough to have some really good managers and coaches.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we'll get you on again and cover some different times that weren't the Dr. Tony mental era. So I'll just try and keep the questions tailored towards the Dr. Tony time. The second person's asked about Henry Land. How good was he? I always loved him, but injuries killed his career. Because you signed at the same time, obviously.
Yeah, no, Henry was really technically good player. Was one of the better players in terms of his technique and how he can handle the ball. It just didn't work for him. It just like injuries at the wrong time, couldn't get a run of games, consistency then as obviously the longer he stayed, more players are coming in and he just maybe fell down the ranks a little bit. But a really good player and just unfortunate period for him, I would say, to be honest. There's no kind of other way of sometimes really good character, really good lad, really good personality in the dressing room. Everyone loved him, but it just didn't quite click for him on the pitch, and that was all it was really.
Yeah, there's a few probably didn't play that were good in the dressing room around the time. So like Mark Bunn.
Yeah.
All the lads loved Mark Bunn, didn't they?
Yeah, Bunny. Everyone loved Bunny. Just didn't play, but a great guy in and around his dressing room, without a doubt.
Yeah, I've heard lots of stories about him and Hudson. I mean, Hudson did play, in fairness, and Henry Lansbury.
Hudson was class. Brilliant guy.
Those players, it was John Terry, Snodgrass, Chester. It's a good dressing room, isn't it?
Yeah, that was brilliant. Honestly, it was. Neil Taylor, obviously. Then you had Jack. Tommy Elphick was a really good guy. Miele, Glenn Whelan. It was honestly, it was quality. It was really good, really enjoyable time.
Were you part of that? Like, I think it's it's like head tennis. It's like
Oh,
on
I
a.
loved it.
Were you
Loved it.
part of that gang?
Yeah, that was ferocious. Some of them had tennis games in the dressing room was ferocious. So
John said,
the dressing room in Bodymore. I don't know if it's
yeah, yeah.
changed.
I
Kind
think
of
it's changed. Yeah,
yeah. So it was like wooden lockers, and it was in like I don't know, a circle-ish type, like a long circle.
I do. I do remember. Me and Doctor Tony spent some time chatting in the dressing room.
Yeah, did you? Yeah.
No, no, no.
He probably did. And there was a net. We put a net in the middle of the dressing room. It was perfect because it used to bounce because of the shape of the dressing room. It was
Yeah.
like kind of long and circled. It used to bounce up perfectly at times. And it was just we used to be in there till 6 o'clock in the evening playing, honestly.
Who was in that gang?
So JT, myself, Snoddy, Wheelo, were the four main ones. Jack.
I was gonna say Jack must have been involved in
Yeah,
that. He
Jack
loves stuff
was
like
in
that.
it. Who else would have been it? Was the Neil Taylor play a little bit? Henry maybe, Neil Taylor. But they had to ban it.
Really?
Yeah, so there was a stage in the season where we weren't performing potentially. I can't remember what time of the season it was. And on a Friday they banned the head tennis because they thought it was affecting some of the performances. That's what,
Who banned that? Bruce.
yeah, I just think like the medical department or Brucey or something like that. I can't remember.
Just said no more head tennis.
No more head tennis on Friday because lads were just that keen on it that they thought it was affecting some of the energy levels.
That's mental.
Yeah.
Who was that? Who used to come out on top of the head tennis league?
Itzy used to think he did, of course, and he would if he was here now, he'd argue obviously till it was dark. So let's say that he won all the time. But honestly, so me, Snoddy, Wheelo, and JT used to be at it all the time, like all the time.
So like your
But
wife,
JT obviously was top class. He was top
yeah, a
class.
good header of the ball. I'm sure probably one of the best headers of the ball there's ever been.
Yeah, exactly. So
like you've obviously got your missus waiting at home for you to come home from training. Are you like saying at that point? I'm not trying to stitch you up here. I very much doubt she's watching.
Yeah.
Like, are you saying training's gone? It's gone on long today. It's overran today.
I think there was no bother with it really because we had no kids.
So you just do what you like anyway.
Yeah, no kids. You know what I mean? It's very kind of lackadaisical. Doesn't really matter what time you kind of come back. But if there was kids involved, then it's trouble, isn't it?
Yeah, was Gabby not playing? Because I know he didn't play much that season, but he was in the squad, wasn't he?
He used to like sit in the corner and just like laugh and take the piss out of everyone if you had a bad shot or if you're having a bad time, and just kind of wind everyone up. Gabby's a great lad though as well. Great lad.
Some players in that squad, like who didn't play. Like Mika Richards was.
Yeah, Meeks was there.
Chris Samba.
Gabby, Chris Samba, yeah. Forgot about him. Samba, yeah. Tommy Elphick, Richie Delat.
People were just knocking around all over the Villa, weren't they?
Yeah. Miele, Scott Hogan. Who else was
just a lot of players.
Yeah, there was a lot of players. Gary Gardner was there for a little bit.
Yeah, until he went to Blues and then said he decided he was a Blues fan.
Yeah.
Because he used to say he was obviously a Villa fan when he was at Villa, and then he went to Blues and suddenly he was a Blues fan all his life.
I know. To appease the fans, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, that squad team. I'd love to have watched one. I can't believe it.
Yeah, I got banned. Yeah.
Head tennis.
Yeah. Proper had to get banned. Yeah.
When they ban that, are you like?
We're gutted.
No, you can't. No, don't,
yeah, you can.
Don't ban that.
No, don't take that away from us, please. And I think they wanted to ban it. I can't remember now, to be honest, but I think they wanted to ban it, and we agreed on like a Friday.
Just a Fridays, no.
Or a Monday, like a day before the Tuesday game.
But never come back.
Yeah. So like, as soon as Saturday's game over and we didn't have a Tuesday game or Thursday or whatever,
Okay.
we're playing.
But like the next season, because John Terry's gone.
Yeah,
Noddy's gone.
That was the end of the tennis then.
So it died off when John Terry left, basically.
Yeah. Him, Snoddy. Then you lost like Gabby. It would have been in there till late, let's say, in the day. I suppose you still had Wheelo and myself, but it definitely died when Snoddy and JT left.
That's pure leadership, isn't it? You know, if you're leaving and a game dies with you when you leave, that's like pure leadership from them too, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like you're taking it with you, aren't you? You're taking it with you.
Wouldn't have been the same.
No,
wouldn't have been the same.
Not the same, buzz. Good times though.
Yeah, great times. And then obviously even better the next season when you get promoted, which I'm sure we'll talk about next time you're tied in now, Connor. Every international break, in you come, for a show. So we'll talk about the promotion year next time.
November next, is it?
Huh?
November international break. That's what it is, isn't it?
November. We'll get you on again in November, and we'll talk through the season we got promoted and any tales that you can remember from then. So Connor, thank you ever so much for. Oh no, it's a good question actually. Good question. Just before we finish, Richard Taylor, do players watch the YouTube Villa channels?
My dad did.
Your dad did?
Yeah, my dad watched your show all the time.
The glory days when Tom Julian was on as well, though, wasn't it? It was a different time.
Left, and then it was
different time.
Yeah, it went downhill after.
It's been a slog since Tom left, hasn't it? It's not been the same.
No, I used to watch the odd one, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Definitely in the good times, more than the bad times. I only watched, to be fair, I only watched your one because I knew you a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's one of them things that lads would openly talk about because they probably feel like, you know, why are you watching that? Because you're a player, you know.
Yeah.
But I used to watch one or two.
I think they do.
I couldn't tell you about other players, if I'm being honest.
I know that some do, and I know that some coaching staff do as well. Like, I'm not going to say who the player is, but he's still there. But there was a time a couple of years ago when I was like, I've never like really got in on anyone. I wasn't slagging him off, like going mental, but I was a bit critical of a player.
Okay.
And like he kept that play. He didn't follow me on social media, but suddenly like I could be tweeting about anything, and that player would just like it. So I'd get a notification every time saying they'd like that tweet. So just it could be about anything.
Okay.
They just kept liking my tweet so that their name kept coming up in my notification. And I was thinking, this is like a message to basically say to me,
I'm watching.
Stop criticizing me. I know what you've been saying about me.
But he never messaged you?
No, never messaged me, but the liking of the tweets kept happening. And then, to be honest, that player's been brilliant, and I've not ever criticised them, and the liking has stopped.
Okay.
So it's like that is like players do.
Yeah,
they do listen. They listen and know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, players definitely do, but I couldn't tell you like a player at the time at Villa that used to say like, "Oh, did you watch this?" or "I'm watching that." No, not really.
Because realistically, who cares what I'm saying? Really?
Exactly, and I think if you were in a dressing room at the time saying like, "Oh, I'm watching this Villa fan channel, sorry, on YouTube," they'd go like, "What are you watching that for?" I don't think it probably comes across great.
No,
you know what I mean.
It's the shame of watching.
There's definitely a part of players that are interested to see what people are saying, just to see. There definitely is, without doubt.
Because you're a scroller.
I'm a scroller,
and a searcher, weren't you, on Twitter when you were at Villa?
Yeah,
you always used to look at what people were saying about you.
Yeah, I did. But I always used to. It didn't affect me though. I know it's easy to say that, but I wouldn't have scrolled if I felt like it was influencing me.
No, you're doing it more from a "I'll prove you wrong."
Yeah.
I'm sure people were praising you as well, but you know, like,
that would have been my kind of fire. I'll show you type.
Yeah, I mean, we won't go into the story about the one guy because we've been in trouble doing that on podcasts before. We won't go into that. But yeah, you know, I understand. I think if I was a footballer, I think I'd be like you. I'd be looking at what people are saying because I feel like I'd have to know what people are thinking. It's sometimes good to get a gauge of what people. I mean, some stuff on social media is absolutely ridiculous anyway. But
you have to take it with a pinch of salt, and there's context around everything. They might know a situation or whatever. You know what I mean? But I'm just lucky enough that I use it for fire, whereas other people might be a bit fragile for it. So you have to understand what you're kind of looking for and how it's going to influence you. I think is the big thing.
Yeah, a few people in the comments saying that it was Leon Bailey who was doing that to me. It wasn't Leon Bailey. I can confirm. It definitely wasn't Leon Bailey. But Conor, I'll let you go because you sat in there. Is that the manager in the office?
Yeah,
coach's office. There?
Yeah. So I'm just around here, coach's office. Yeah.
So you got a game at the weekend or?
Yeah, we got a game. Blackpool.
Blackpool.
Sorry, not this weekend. That's our next game. Sorry, that's our
you
next
got nothing this weekend.
No.
Okay.
No. So all good.
Lovely. All right then, mate. Well, thank you ever so much.
No problems. Pleasure.
Thank you for coming on the channel as always. Connor, thank you to everyone that's watched as well. Everyone seems to love having you on in the chat, Connor, and loves that we do it live as well. So that's absolutely brilliant. People obviously remember you really fondly from your time at the club. Do all the things that help the channel if you're watching on video or if you're listening via audio. All the things I bang on about every week, and we'll be back with some content on Monday. Greg and myself will be doing a podcast. So enjoy your Villa free weekend. Obviously, it hasn't got off to a brilliant start for most of us with the England game last night, but whatever you're doing,